This sound file contains the spoken version of a Wikipedia article on Fanno Creek recorded by user Senecaster. The material recorded is current as on the 18th of April, 2021. Fanno Creek from Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia at en.wikipedia.org. Fanno Creek is a 15-mile or 24-kilometer tributary of the Tualatin River in the U.S. state of Oregon. Part of the drainage base of the Columbia River, its watershed covers about 32 square miles or 83 square kilometers in Multnomah, Washington, and Clackamas counties, including about 7 square miles or 18 square kilometers within the Portland city limits. From its headwaters in the Tualatin Mountains, or West Hills, in southwest Portland, the creek flows generally west and south through the cities of Portland, Beaverton, Tigard, and Durham, and unincorporated areas of the Washington County. It enters the Tualatin River about 9 miles or 14 kilometers above the Tualatin's confluence with the Willamette River at West Lynn. When settlers of the European origin arrived, the Kalapuya lived in that area, having displaced the Multnomahs in pre-contact times. In 1847, the first settler of European descent, Augustus Fanno, for whom the creek was named, established an onion farm in what became Beaverton. Fanno Farmhouse, the restored family home, is a century farm on the National Register of Historic Places and is one of 16 urban parks in a narrow corridor along the creek. Although heavily polluted, the creek supports aquatic life, including coastal cutthroat trout, leopard-spotted, in its upper regions. Watershed councils such as the Fans of Fanno Creek and government agencies have worked to limit pollution and to restore native vegetation in riparian zones. Contents. This article contains 9 sections with 4 subsections. Section 1, Course. Section 1.1, Discharge. Section 2, Watershed. Section 2.1, Annual Report Card. Section 3, History. Section 4, Pollution. Section 5, Biology. Section 5.1, Fish and Wildlife. Section 5.2, Vegetation. Section 6, Parks. Section 7, See Also. Section 8, Notes and References. Section 9, External Links. Section 1, Course. Fanno Creek arises at an elevation of 478 feet or 146 meters above sea level and falls 370 feet or 110 meters between source and mouth to an elevation of 108 feet or 33 meters. The main stem begins at about River Mile or RM 15 or River Kilometer RK 24 in the Hillsdale neighborhood of southwest Portland in Multnomah County. The creek flows west along the north side of Oregon Route 10, or the Beaverton-Hillsdale Highway, passing Albert Kelly Park and receiving Ivy Creek and Bridle Mile Creek on the right side before reaching the United States Geological Survey USGS stream gauge at Southwest 56th Avenue, 11.9 miles or 19.2 kilometers from the mouth. Shortly thereafter, and in quick succession, it enters Washington County and the unincorporated community of Raleigh Hills, crossings under Route 10 and receives Sylvan Creek on the right. Here the stream turns south, passing through Bauman Park, where Vermont Creek enters on the left about 10 miles or 16 kilometers from the mouth, and then southwest to flow through Portland Golf Club and Vista Brook Park, where Woods Creek enters on the left. From here, it flows west again for about 1 mile or 1.6 kilometers, passing through Fanno Creek Trail Park and entering Beaverton about 8 miles or 13 kilometers from the mouth before turning sharply south and flowing under Oregon Route 217 or Beaverton-Tigard Highway. Fanno Creek then flows roughly parallel to 217 for about 2 miles or 3 kilometers through Fanno Creek Park and Greenway Park. Near the southern end of Greenway Park, the creek passes under Oregon Route 210 or Skulls Ferry Road and enters Tigard at about 5 miles or 8 kilometers from the mouth. In quick succession, Hideon Creek enters on the right, Ash Creek on the left, and Summer Creek on the right before the creek reaches Woodward Park, goes under Oregon Route 99 West, Southwest Pacific Highway, and flows through Fanno Park and Bonita Park as well as residential neighborhoods. Between the two parks, Red Rock Creek enters on the left at about 2.5 miles or 4 kilometers from the mouth. Slightly downstream of Bonita Park, Ball Park 3, 2, 1. Slightly downstream of Bonita Park, Ball Creek enters on the left. Fanno Creek then enters Durham, passes a USGS gauging station 1.13 miles or 1.82 kilometers from the mouth, flows through Durham City Park, and empties into the Tualatin River 9.3 miles or 15 kilometers from its confluence with the Willamette River. Section 1.1 Discharge. The USGS monitors the flow of Fanno Creek at two stations, one in Durham at 1.13 miles or 1.82 kilometers from the mouth, and the other in Portland, 11.9 miles or 19.2 kilometers from the mouth. The average flow of the creek at Durham Station is 43.9 cubic feet per second or 1.24 cubic meters per second. This is from a drainage area of 31.5 square miles or 81.6 square kilometers, more than 99% of the total Fanno Creek watershed. The maximum flow recorded there was 1,670 cubic feet per second or 47 cubic meters per second on December 3, 2007, and the minimum flow was 1 cubic foot per second or 0.03 cubic meters per second on September 13, 2001 and September 15, 2009. At the Portland station, the average flow is 3.15 cubic feet per second or 0.09 cubic meters per second. This is from a drainage area of 2.37 square miles, or 6.1 square kilometers, or about 7% of the total Fanno Creek watershed. The maximum flow recorded there was 733 cubic feet per second, or 21 cubic meters per second on February 8, 1996, and the minimum flow was 0.01 cubic feet per second, or 0.0003 cubic meters per second on September 4, 2001. Section 2 Watershed. A narrow bridge supported by sets of cylindrical piers topped with concrete crosses a muddy river. A much smaller stream, nearly obscured by vegetation, enters the river near one end of the bridge. Fanno Creek, nearly hidden by foliage, meets the much larger Tualatin River near a pedestrian bridge. Draining 31.7 square miles or 82.1 square kilometers, Fanno Creek receives water from Portland's West Hills, Sexton Mountain in Beaverton, and Bull Mountain near Tigard. Nearly all of the watershed is urban. About 7 square miles or 18 square kilometers, roughly 22% of the total, lies inside the Portland city limits. The highest elevation in the watershed is 1,060 feet or 320 meters at Council Crest in the West Hills. The peak elevation on Sexton Mountain is 476 feet or 145 meters, while Bull Mountain rises to 715 feet or 218 meters. At about 117 miles or 188 kilometers of streams flows through the watershed, including Ash Creek, Summer Creek, and 12 smaller tributaries. A smaller part of the drainage basin lies in the city of Lake Oswego in Clackamas counties, near the headwaters of Ball Creek, a Fanno Creek tributary. The slopes at the heads of Fanno Creek consist mainly of Columbia River basalt exposed in ravines, but otherwise covered by up to 25 feet or 8 meters of wind-deposited silt. Silt and clays are the most common watershed soils, and significant erosion is common. About 50 inches or 1,300 millimeters of precipitation, almost all of which is rain and about half of which arrives in November, December, and January, falls in the watershed each year. Although significant flooding occurred in 1977, the watershed had not experienced a 100-year flood since the area became urban. Small watersheds adjacent to Fanno Creek watershed include those of minor tributaries of the Willamette or Tualatin rivers. Tyrone Creek, Balch Creek, and other small streams east of Fanno Creek flow down through the eastern flank of the West Hills into the Willamette. To the northwest, Hall Creek, Cedar Mill Creek, and Bronson Creek flow into Beaverton Creek, a tributary of Rock Creek, which empties into the Tualatin River at the larger streams RM 38.4 or RK 61.8, about 28 miles or 47 kilometers upriver from the mountain of Fanno Creek. This section is accompanied by an image with the caption, quote, "Fanno Creek, nearly hidden by foliage, meets with the much larger Tualatin River near a pedestrian bridge," end quote. Section 2.1 Annual Report Card. In 2015, Portland's Bureau of Environmental Services, or BES, began issuing annual report cards for watersheds or fractions thereof that lie within the city. BES assigns grades for each of 4 categories: hydrology, water quality, habitat, and fish and wildlife. Hydrology grades depend on the amount of pavement and other impervious surfaces in the watershed and the degree to which streams flow freely, not dammed or diverted. Water quality grades are based on measurements of dissolved oxygen, E. coli bacteria, temperature, suspended solids, and substances such as mercury and phosphorus. Habitat ranking depends on the condition of stream banks and floodplains, riparian zones, tree canopies, and other variables. The Fish and Wildlife Assessment includes birds, fish, and macroinvertebrates. In 2015, the BES grades for the Fanno Creek watershed fraction within Portland are hydrology C, water quality C+, habitat B-, and fish and wildlife D-. Fanno Creek begins near Hillsdale Park in Portland and passing through Beaverton and Tigard ends at the Tualatin River near Durham City Park. This section is accompanied by a group of 4 images with the caption, quote, "Map of Fanno Creek's route through Portland, Beaverton, Tigard, and Durham. The creek rises in the Tualatin Hills right and flows west and south to the confluence with the Tualatin River to the left. The route has been artificially straightened by orienting each of the panels differently, as shown by the compass symbols." End quote. Section 3, History. Previous people of the Fanno Creek watershed were the Atfalati or Tualti tribes of the Kalapuya, said to have displaced even earlier inhabitants, the Multnomas, prior to European contact. The valleys of the Willamette River and its major tributaries, such as the Tualatin River, consisted of open grassland maintained by annual burning, with scattered groves of trees alongside the rivers and creeks. The Kalapuya moved from place to place in good weather to fish, to hunt small animals, birds, waterfowl, deer, and creek, and elk, and to gather nuts, seeds, roots, and berries. Important foods included camas and wapato. In addition to trading for eels, suckers, and trouts, the Atfalati traded for salmon from Chinookan tribes near Willamette Falls. During the winter, the Kalapuya lived in long houses in settled villages. Their population was greatly reduced after contact in the late 18th century with Europeans, who carried malaria, smallpox, measles, and other diseases. Added pressure came from white settlers who seized and fenced native lands, regarded it as private property, and sometimes punished natives for trespassing. Of the original population of 1,000 to 2,000 Atfalati reported in 1780, only 65 remained in 1851. In 1855, the U.S. government sent the survivors to the Grand Ronde Reservation further west. Fanno Creek is named after Augustus Fanno, the first European-American settler along the creek. In 1847, he started an onion farm on a 640-acre or 260-hectare donation land claim in what later became part of Beaverton. Other 19th century newcomers along the creek engaged mainly in logging, farming, and dairy farming until the Southern Pacific Railroad and the Oregon Electric Company railway lines made the watershed more accessible for urban development around the turn of the 20th century. The Oregon Electric, a 49-mile or 79-kilometer system built between 1903 and 1915, ran between downtown Portland and Garden Home in the Fanno Creek watershed, where it split into branches leading into Salem and Forest Grove. The Southwest Pacific began running electric passenger trains, known as the Red Electric, in the watershed in 1914. The company that eventually became Portland General Electric installed electric service in the area, and by 1915 the population of the upper Fanno Creek neighborhoods of Multnomah, Maplewood, Hillsdale, and West Portland had grown to 2,000. Passenger service on the Red Electric line ended in 1929, and the Oregon Electric Railway ceased passenger operations in 1933. Private autos largely replaced interurban rail service. Oregon Highway 217 between Durham and Beaverton, and Oregon Highway 10 between Beaverton and Portland follow the creek. Although passenger rail ceased for nearly 80 years, freight trains continued to use the tracks. In 2009, a new rail passenger service began along a former Oregon Electric line owned by Portland and Western Railroad in Washington County. The Western Express Service, or WES, runs 14.7 miles or 23.7 kilometers between Beaverton on the north and Wilsonville on the south. The middle stretch of this line runs close to the lower 8 miles or 13 kilometers of Fanno Creek between Beaverton and Durham. WES is the first modern commuter rail in Oregon and one of the few suburb-to-suburb commuter rails lines in the United States. At the northern end of the line, WES connects to the Max Blue Line, an east-west light rail linking Hillsborough and Gresham, via Portland, and the Max Red Line, with connections to the Portland International Airport. The highways and railroads serve a population that increased most dramatically in the second half of the 20th century. When Beaverton was incorporated as a city in 1893, it had a population of 400. By 2010, the number had soared to 94,000, although not all of them lived in the watershed. Tigard, which did not exist as a city until 1961, grew to be 49,000 by the year 2013, all in the watershed. Fanno Creek, which had few people living near it until 1950, quote, is surrounded by the most populous region in Oregon, end quote. This section is accompanied by two images, the first of which has the caption, quote, Fanno Farmhouse was the home of Augustus Fanno, for whom the creek is named. Built in 1859 and restored by the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District, it was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1984, end quote. The second image has the caption, quote, WES trains use the former Oregon Electric Line along the lower Fanno Creek between Durham and Beaverton. Section 4. Pollution. Although the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, or DEQ, rated the average water quality of Fanno Creek as very poor between 1986 and 1995, it also noted steady improvement over that span. Historically, Fanno Creek had been polluted by urban and industrial services, small sewage treatment plants, ineffective septic systems, farming and grazing operations, and illegal dumping. Health and environmental concerns led to the closing of substandard wastewater treatment plants in the 1970s, and urban development reduced the number of farms and farm animals along the creek. A ban in 1991 on phosphate detergents, increased connection to municipal sewers, stormwater management, and greater public awareness helped to reduce urban pollution not coming from point sources, and water quality improved. DEQ monitors Fanno Creek at Bonita Road in Tigard, at about 2 miles or 3 kilometers from the mouth. On the Oregon Water Quality Index, or OWQI, used by DEQ, water quality scores can vary from 10, the worst, to 100, ideal. The average for Fanno Creek between 1986 and 1995 was 55, but steadily improved to 65, or poor, by the end of the period. By comparison, the average water in the nearby Willamette River at the Hawthorne Bridge in downtown Portland was 74 during the same years. Measurements of water quality at the Tigard site during the years covered by the DEQ report showed high concentrations of phosphate, fecal coliform bacteria, and suspended solids, and a high biochemical oxygen demand. Moderately high concentrations of ammonia and nitrate oxygen occurred during the high flows during fall, winter, and spring. High temperatures and low dissolved oxygen concentration in the summer were evidence of eutrophication. The high fraction of impervious surfaces in the watershed makes it difficult to improve water quality in the creek. The Portland Bureau of Environmental Services estimates that 1/3 of the surface area of the watershed that lies within its jurisdiction is impervious. All of the roughly 12 square miles, or 31 square kilometers, of the surface of Tigard, much of it impervious, drains into Fanno Creek. The Watershed Watch Coordinator for Tualatin River Keepers, a volunteer group, was quoted in a July 2008 newspaper saying that, quote, the biggest impact to Fanno Creek is the impervious area, end quote. To slow runoff, reduce erosion, and keep pollutants out of streams, watershed councils, neighborhood groups, and government agencies have been planting native species of vegetation at selected sites throughout the watershed. Section 5. Biology. Section 5.1. Fish and Wildlife. About 100 bird species, several kinds of mammals, and a few fish species live in the watershed. Mammals commonly seen include beaver, raccoon, possum, spotted skunk, Douglas squirrel, and Townsend's chipmunk. Black-tailed deer and coyotes are more rare. Fanno Creek supports non-migrating coastal cutthroat trout that spawn in fast-flowing, gravel-bottomed headwaters and grow to as long as 14 inches or 36 centimeters. Other fish species found in the creek include sculpins, mosquito fish, and eel. Beavers, rodents weighing up to 60 pounds or 27 kilograms, have sometimes caused problems along Fanno Creek. In 2014 and 15, a growing population of beavers gnawed down trees and dammed the creek in Greenway Park in Beaverton. Rising waters have covered one of the side trails in the park, which has been gated and closed. During heavy rains, water from the beaver pond sometimes covers the main trail. Park officials are considering a variety of options, including rerouting the trails, building a boardwalk over the water, or removing the beaver dams. This section is accompanied by an image with the caption, quote, "Cutthroat trout at the creek's headwaters," end quote. Section 5.2 Vegetation. The creek begins in the Coastal Range ecoregion designated by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, and flows thereafter through the Willamette Valley ecoregion. The narrow riparian corridors along streams in the watershed commonly include native species such as the western red cedar, Douglas fir, vine maple, and sword fern, as well as invasive species like the English ivy. Many red alder and bigleaf maple grow in the watershed, and shrubs include red huckleberry, Oregon grape, elderberry, wood rose, and salmonberry. A restoration project in Tigard along the main stem has removed invasive plants such as reed canary grass and Himalayan blackberry and replaced them with native species. A project in Beaverton is replacing turf and degraded habitat along the creek with native shrubs and trees such as Oregon white oak. The Tualatin River Keepers, a non-profit watershed council based in Tigard, Clean Water Services, a public utility that protects water resources in the Tualatin River watershed, and the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District, or THPRD, have formed the Tualatin Basin Invasive Species Working Group to identify and eradicate invasive plants that displace native plants, cause erosion, and diminish water quality. The 5 plants considered most threatening are Japanese knotweed, meadow knapweed, giant hogweed, garlic mustard, and purple loosestrife. The Oregon Department of Agriculture and the City of Tigard are working to eradicate giant hogweed from lower Fanno Creek. This section is accompanied by one image with the caption, quote, "Japanese knotweed is an invasive plant deemed harmful to the watershed," end quote. Section 6 Parks. Fanno Creek passes through or near 16 parks in several jurisdictions. Portland Parks and Recreation manages 3, Hillside Park, which is 5 acres or 2 hectares in size and has picnic tables and a dog park near the headwaters. Albert Kelly Park, 12 acres or 4.9 hectares in size with unpaved paths, picnic tables, play areas, and Wi-Fi north of the creek at about 14 miles or 23 kilometers from the mouth, and the Fanno Creek Natural Area, 7 acres or 2.8 hectares in size and located north of the creek about 12 miles or 19 kilometers from the mouth. The Tualatin Hill Park and Recreation District, or THPRD, manages 7 Fanno Creek parks in Beaverton and in the unincorporated Washington County. The district, tax-supported and governed by an electric board, is the largest special park and recreation district in Oregon. The 7 include Bauman Park, about 8 acres or 3.2 hectares at about 10 miles or 16 kilometers from the mouth. Slightly downstream from Bauman Park are Vista Brook Park, about 4 acres or 1.6 hectares, with trails including one that is accessible to people with physical handicaps, a playground, and courts for basketball and tennis, and Fanno Creek Trail, about 2 acres or 0.8 hectares, with picnic tables and trails. Other THPRD parks lie along Fanno Creek from roughly 7 miles or 11 kilometers to roughly 5 miles to 8 kilometers from the mouth. These are Fanno Creek Park, about 21 acres or 8.5 hectares, with trails including one accessible to people with handicaps, Fanno Farmhouse, about 1 acre or 0.4 hectares, with an accessible trail and picnic tables, as well as the Fanno Family Home, restored by THPRD and listed on the National Register of Historic Places. This also includes Greenway Park, about 87 acres or 35 hectares, with trails including an accessible trail, picnic tables, a playground and sports field, and Knoll Center Wetlands, about 13 acres or 5.3 hectares, with wildlife. The 5 Fanno Creek parks managed by the City of Tigard include Englewood Park, which is 15 acres or 6.1 hectares with play structures and trails, including a segment of the Fanno Creek Trail, Woodland Park, 15 acres or 6.1 hectares in size of big trees, trails, and play structures, Bonita Park, 3.5 acres or 1.4 hectares in size, including a playground and picnic areas, Dirksen Nature Park, 48 acres or 19 hectares of forest, wetland, and open space, and Fanno Creek Park, a 30-acre or 12-hectare natural area in downtown Tigard. At about 20% of the small city of Durham is parkland. Surrounded by larger cities of Tigard and Tualatin, the city covers 265 acres or 107 hectares, occupied by about 1,400 people. Durham City Park, at the confluence of Fanno Creek and the Tualatin River, consists of 46 acres or 19 hectares of heavily flooded wooded floodplain with paved trails, children's play areas, and a picnic shelter. Sections of trail along the main stem of Fanno Creek form part of a planned 15-mile or 24-kilometer Fanno Creek Greenway Trail linking Wilmette Park on the Willamette River in southwest Portland to the confluence of the creek with Tualatin River in Durham. The trail, for pedestrians and bicyclists, is accessible to people with disabilities. Several unfinished segments remain as of 2013. This section is accompanied by an image with the caption, quote, "A completed section of the Fanno Creek Greenway Trail runs through Fanno Creek Park in Beaverton." End quote. Section 7. See also. This section suggests some Wikipedia articles for reading. The suggested articles are 1. List of rivers of Oregon. Section 8. References. There are references available in the written form of this article. Please be sure to verify information found on Wikipedia using the references provided or by cross-referencing the information yourself. Section 9. External links. In addition to the above, several external links have been listed for finding additional information online. There is a link to Wikimedia Commons which has media relating to Fanno Creek. We have now come to the end of the spoken article, Fanno Creek. This sound file and all text in the article are licensed under the Creative Commons Attributions Share-alike 3.0 Unported license, available at creativecommons.org/licenses/by-sa/3.0.